Alrighty, bow hunters, welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Bow Hunter. Sitting down online with Fred Eichler. Fred, thank you for joining me, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Matty, I'm honored. No problem, buddy.
So, for those of the Australians and New Zealanders that are listening, I guess, Fred was the first bow hunter to take all 29 American big game species with from the Super Slam with a recurve bow, and I think that's absolutely outstanding, right? Is that right? You're the first one to do it across all people that have been before, like even Fred Bear and stuff like that?
Yes, sir. Fred Bear never did it, but that was never a goal. The Super Slam was really invented by Chuck Adams, who was the first person to do it with a bow. I was just curious if I had what it took mentally and physically to do that and do it with a traditional bow. And it was really cool because Chuck Adams, he came up and actually gave me a cool little award when I did it. But he said, man, let me tell you something. That's really cool. But so it was really cool because I have a lot of respect for him and his accomplishments. But Chuck Adams was a guy that kind of named it what it was. And really, it was more about a personal challenge. I didn't know if I'd ever get it done in my lifetime. But as I got closer, I was like, oh, man, I really got to do this. So it was a fun deal. There was 27 species at first, and I think I got that first. Then it became 28 species. And a guy named Rick Dugan got 28, and then they added the Tulier, which made it 29, and then I got the 29th. So yeah, I was the first to get the 29. So it wasn't, I didn't look at it as a race. I didn't look at it, I didn't care whether I was first or 105th. I just wanted to see if I had what it took to do it. And it was a fun adventure.
Yeah, definitely. I think what I really love about all the content that you put out, Fred, is the fact that you're about the hunt. You always have been. You're always about going out for the adventure, just enjoying the time that you've got in nature. And it doesn't matter how many times it takes to hunt the animal. Each time is its own unique journey. And it's something that you really capture really well. And I think there's so much of hunting that is purely showing just the grip and grin at the end of the day. And it doesn't necessarily highlight the rest of it. And I think we're getting better. Social media kind of highlights, I guess, all aspects of it. And hunters often get in their own way because they only post the gory stuff rather than posting all of the amazing things that happen in that journey and in that time. And so for today, what I'd really love to get into is actually some stories based on the different critters that you've hunted over the time. From the 29, obviously we don't have time to get through all 29 species. That would be incredible though. But maybe we start with maybe some of the more unique species. So let's start actually on the muskox. That's probably a pretty out there animal in the sense of, I've definitely talked to people on here that have hunted muskox before, mainly in Greenland, I believe. But yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about hunting muskox and the story of how it actually went down for you and maybe a few tips around the muskox.
Sure, Matty. I want to say that Fred Bear was a huge inspiration on a lot of this stuff, because he did such an amazing job of writing about what you just talked about. And you and me talked a little bit before we started recording, and your feeling is the same as mine. It's the sunrises, the sunsets. It doesn't matter if it's a trophy animal. It's more about the experience. And Fred Bear was very much like that. And his writing and his shows inspired me as a young man. I was like, man, because he did such a great job of not only describing the animal, but the people that he met, the places he was at, you know what I mean? The things that he learned, the animals that he had never seen before that he saw. So that was really cool. But to get on and start with the muskox, I chose to go up in Nunavut, and I chose to go in the fall. And the reason was, if you go in the winter and if you watch most muskox, guys are bundled up, giant jackets, and they have the full face balaclava and giant gloves. And that's because it's easier to kill a muskox when there's tons of snow and you're on a snowmobile or four-wheeler, and they push.
Because essentially you just herd them up and then go and take your shot, right?
So I didn't want to do that. I wanted just to stalk a muskox. So when I went, and it's on video, it was no snow on the ground. The muskox were spread out. I was crawling. My guy was frustrated because he would have much rather me had a rifle. It was really fun. I was using the terrain. It was mostly open tundra. I found a little bit of a break in the terrain. So I was just crawling like crazy to try and get in range of this one muskox. And he was just feeding by himself and doing his muskox thing. And I'm crawling and hoping and crawling. And he stayed close enough to that ditch that I was able to get a shot. And the first shot was fatal. He ran a little ways. I literally stayed down the ditch. And although he was probably about to go down, I gave him another one. I was like, oh, awesome. I'm gonna get another arrow in him. One of the things that surprised me about muskox is how hairy they are. I mean, that's what they are. But it's one thing to see a picture or video. It's another thing to like take your hand and have it go up to your elbow.
Yeah, that's
animal's
wild.
hair.
Yeah.
And they look, Matty, they look so big. And once you get them out, you're like, it's like a deer. It's really not that big of an animal. So they're really cool, though, super unique. And that's part of the fun. Not to sound weird, but like animals smell different. I enjoy the smell, the feel of the horns, which are different. The bosses, the feet, the large hooves, the whole 9 yards. So to me, it was fascinating. An animal that's so well suited to that type of environment. But I would say it's an easier hunt. That's why I encourage people to go spring, fall, go when there's not snow everywhere.
Yeah.
And enjoy a proper hunt, if you will. You know what I mean? Stalking them, getting out there.
Exactly. Actually,
Going after them. It's really it's a fun experience. And I'm not taking anything away from people that have done it the other way. That's everybody's choice. But for me, that was the perfect hunt. I tell people to look into it, figure out what you want, and talk to the outfitter. That's really important. You get a lot of information from them and tell them the experience that you're looking for, and they can customize it and tell you what time would be a better time for you to go, whether it's Greenland or Alaska or Nunavut. Those are some of the more popular places.
It's pretty interesting to think how much hair you have to penetrate with an arrow before you even get to skin or bone or anything. Like
it really didn't. I was surprised. I got pretty good penetration, 3/4 of the arrow, but I don't shoot a super heavy bow, but penetration was great. But I was just surprised that I would never attempt probably even like a chisel point. I went with a cut on impact. I think that's probably one of the better ways to go. You know what I mean? Shoot on a big animal like that.
So going from an animal like that to the bison, are you actually changing your setup? Are you changing arrow weight, your bows around, or anything like that? Are you just keeping one setup for the whole species? Like, the jump from species to species.
Great question, Matty. I prefer, just because I've gotten so used to my trajectory, I prefer to keep my feet per second about the same and a similar setup, just because when I'm shooting instinctive, when I change setups,
it masses everything. Definitely.
And I've got to shoot a lot to get used to that, especially if I'm going to take a longer shot or even closer shot, really. I try and stick with the same setup for years. And when I say years, 25, 30 years, I shot 54 pounds. If I had to jump it up a little bit, it was because of legality, where somebody had a minimum. So I would follow the legalities if I had to jump up. But most of the animals out of the 29, I took with a 54-pound bow.
That's incredible.
I'm still doing that. Right now, I've dropped down to about 50 pounds now, 51, and that's working great for me too. So
I feel like it's such a great approach just to have the one setup. You don't have to tinker. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think, okay, this is 20 meters, but I'm with my 60-pound bow, or I'm with my 50-pound bow. That would just be a mess.
Oh, I know some guys switch. I just don't switch as easily because of the style I shoot. Even if I go lighter, I'll go a little heavier arrow. So I try and match, if that makes sense. I try to match my trajectory. I want to, or heavier, sorry, I'll go heavier arrow. I try and match my trajectory. If I want to have a similar arc, similar trajectory.
Yeah, makes complete sense.
But like on the bison, example, it's just the same class. For that one, I went up into the Pink Mountains in British Columbia. Incredible hunt. It was an expensive hunt because there's so much travel involved. We took a bush plane into the middle of nowhere, landed on this little gravel bar. And then from there, we got on horses. And from there, we went way into the mountains. And then from there, we walked to try and find a glass bison. It's a difficult hunt because they're hunted by wolves and people and grizzlies and all kinds of other predators. But it was a really fun hunt. It was a challenge. That was really cool because the guys that I was going with at the time, Mac Watson and his family, they were like, man, Fred, this is a tough one. We've had compounds have issues, probably going to have to get real close. I was like, man, okay. You know what I mean? They had me a little worried. But the one I shot, I wish I could remember exactly. I would say he was 20 to 25 yards. The arrow buried in him. And the unique thing to me was I was real happy with the shot placement, but the buffalo only made that 80-yard circle and just fell over dead.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, holy smokes. But there's something interesting about bison anatomy, if you look into it, where some animals, not to be too graphic with people, but some animals can function really well. Their lungs almost function separately. You know what I mean? You can have a collapsed lung and your other lung can sustain you. You know what I mean? The animal can really recover and be okay. On bison, they have a different anatomy. And literally, if one lung goes down, my understanding is the other one
just goes. Yeah, wow.
Sustain it. So it's a neat thing. Penetration, getting into lungs is super important. but I think it's not as important to go all the way through. So I had an interesting conversation with Chuck Adams about that. And he said the same exact thing. And he used some fancy medical term that I won't even try and attempt to. If people are curious and look it up, there's some interesting stuff about bison.
Yeah, interesting. They're pretty aggressive. Like the bovine species here, they're pretty darn aggressive. If you get super close and they know you're there, they'll start to put their head down at you and scrape at you and do all the things.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen that with the Asiatic buffalo over in Australia, but I had the guide had me more nervous. I was doing great, man. We were crawling up with this herd and there was no trees. It was a big, huge willow bottom. There were dark timber up above us. But he said, man, Fred, be careful. Like we're out in the middle of nowhere. And if they realize we're there because we're after that big bull, but there's also some females with young, he said, man, they'll run grizzlies off. Like if you shoot, don't let them see you. So then I'm like, great. Now I got something else going on in my mind. Well, I'm like, okay, shoot. But then just lay down in the grass. Don't let them see you. So it worked out good though. I had no issues there.
Yeah, that's hilarious. How about the pronghorn? It's obviously another very different species to what we've even talked about. Very fast, the speed goat, as they're often referred to.
Yeah.
I believe that you guys have them actually on your ranch where you do some outfitting as well. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. And Matty, antelope to me are just incredible. They're so unique. They're suited for the environment incredibly. They could go from 105-degree temperatures to -30. You know what I mean?
Wild. Yeah.
They're amazing animals. They are the fastest animal in North America, and I believe they're either the second or third. It's really close in the world.
Yeah.
But they don't have a true horn, and it's not an antler. And when they were first named, they were named pronghorn antelope because it looked like a horn, like you see on the African animals. But it's not a true horn. True horned animals as continue to grow their horns for the duration of their lifespan. So whether that's a Rocky goat, a bighorn sheep, you know, whatever that is. So what was really cool about an antelope, they shed their horns every year and regrow them. So
it's a horn material, but it grows every year like an antler. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not a true horned animal. It's not a true antlered animal, but tons of other unique things about them. Their tensile strength, the strength on their bones is equivalent to something almost 5 times as large. Because you can imagine, and if you're running 60 miles an hour, 55 over uneven terrain, if I did that with my truck, it would fall apart. And it can withstand that. Yeah, it's just incredible. But really enjoy hunting antelope. The most efficient way to hunt them is probably over water, and that's the way the majority of them are taken. Very fortunate in the fact that I've enjoyed stalking them. I've hunted them over water. I've used decoys, Montana decoys.
I was going to say the decoys seem to be the thing that everyone's using now.
It's so much fun when it works. It's funny if you use one, everybody thinks, oh, it's just easy. Go use a decoy. No, if you use it too early, they're going to run or ignore it. Same thing with too late, they're done. But you got to hit it in that peak rut. But I also enjoy using the horses. Yeah, I've taken my horses out and hid behind my horses and eased up. So that's really fun. Antelope are small animals. Big buck's only about 110 pounds. So a lot of people, they look huge out on the wide open prairie, but they're really not that big. I tell people really 40 pounds where it's legal. You don't need a heavy bow. Biggest thing on them is just shot placement.
Yes.
Trying to say this politically correct. I'm a little more flexible with my shot on an antelope because they are such a small animal and it's wide open prairie. So your recovery is almost 100%. If you get a cavity shot on an antelope, you should recover that antelope because you can see forever. It makes it.
True. You're just going to see where they run to before they collapse.
Right, exactly. You just kind of follow up. But they're super cool animals. And I tell everybody it's a really unique trophy and the meat is amazing.
What is your preference for shot placement? And what do you talk to your clients about? What is your go-to?
Again, I like the behind the shoulder, the double lung. If I can get a slightly quartering away and take out a lot of stuff, including the front right or front left shoulder, that's even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything that I can get through, I feel like I can get up into the cavity, liver, lungs. I'll take a liver lung shot where I'm going to break on a shoulder too. Yeah. But double lungs, certainly the optimum. But hunting, sometimes things aren't always optimum. And it's so important to know animal anatomy. I think it helps me make decisions in the field. And I have fun and oftentimes break animals down to show people like, oh, I was telling you about the elk I just shot a little while ago, but I mean, it went 50 yards and dropped, you know what I mean? And I was able to go, yep, you know what I mean? I double lung, it was center and it was this and that, and then go open up the animal and So that's an important part of it.
Yeah, the autopsy part is probably something that I haven't delved into a lot yet, but there's a lot of Australians that are doing it a lot more, especially like for education in the sense of, okay, the animal went down within 20 meters. Let's go and have a look at what happened. Oh yeah, we took the top of the heart off. That's why. And then if you look at it, okay, bovine species. Yes, we've ripped open. Oh, sorry, we've gone double lung. Hence why it's gone down so fast. Yeah, it is very interesting to do that. And I think it is an important part of the learning, but more so what you said, actually understanding and even studying the animal's anatomy before you go. I think that is just so powerful for any bow hunter, any hunter in general to understand. Yes, yeah, definitely. To keep skipping through the different species, next up, we've got the Rocky Mountain goat, which is the white, for the Australians listening, the white goat with the small little horns.
That's the white bullhorns, beautiful animals. Everybody says if you're goat hunting, you pass the sheep and keep going. You know what I mean? They're so, super amazing animal as
Get
well.
ready to hike.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to be in some, and goat hunting and sheep hunting, I've been in some of those situations where I was legitimately concerned. I was like, man, I'm going to fall off this cliff.
Yeah.
If I slide here, yeah, I wish my dad would have got me into golf. It's that drive that puts you in some crazy situations. But I think I have it on YouTube, but we did a show. I shot my first Rocky Mountain goat with my recurve, and it was coming up a ridge, and it was actually quartering two a little bit. Shot I don't like to take. Again, knowing animal anatomy, I had to slide it just past the shoulder to go ahead and get everything I wanted and put him down with one shot. That's what I did. But I was so excited when I shot this goat that I ran to keep an eye on him because he peeled off this like straight cliff. So I lost sight of him almost immediately. And I almost ran off. Like literally I stopped and had to catch myself. Oh my God.
My
cameraman lost his mind. You realize you just almost ran off the cliff? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And he goes, Fred, I'll show you the video. Like, you were like within an inch or two. You caught yourself and you get so in the moment. I tell people on Rocky Mountain goats, awesome animal, great hunt. I like to go whenever I can, self-guided. So the majority of my Super Slam self-guided. The only ones I went guided for were the ones that I had to. But Rocky Mountain goat, I went by myself, and scouting's important, but be prepared as you can. It's one of those hunts you're probably going to lose some weight on. You've got to have really good gear, whether it's boots, whether it's clothing, you know what I mean? Layer up and have all your stuff together and be prepared to fall. I've told people like, man, I carry some extra arrows. I've taken some good spills where it's, oh, dang it. And you're rough on your equipment.
Yeah.
I tell people simple's easier. I like to shoot off the shelf for that reason. A lot of guys, I know shoot recurves and they use flippers or rests, but you take a good fall on the rocks and booger your rest.
All over. Yeah.
It's all over. So I like the simple. I carry an extra bowstring almost all the time on goat and sheep hunts all the time.
Yeah.
Because you can slide down, catch one on a sharp rock and really be in trouble there. Rocky Mountain goats, beautiful animal, a lot of fun. If guys are going to go with an outfitter, if they draw a tag, I think people can put in for tags in a lot of places here in the US and maybe draw one. If you go with an outfitter, again, the big thing is to just be honest, tell them about the range you're looking for and the kind of terrain you need to get after them, and be honest about the shape you're in. As an outfitter, I'd much rather a guy say, hey, Fred, man, I'm 5'4" and I'm 320 pounds and I have a desk job. You know what I mean? Then tell me, oh, man, I'm ready to do anything. You know, when he shows up and you're like, come on, man. So just be honest about your physical condition. You know what I mean? Yes. What you can do if you're booking with an outfitter, because that helps them. They may go, oh, okay, we're going to take you to a fly-in area, or we have an area over here where, it may be a little steeper, but it's not going to be as long. So that's really important with helping not only a successful hunt, but helping out with the guide and being able to match up an hunting area to a person, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I love what you just said about the extra string, especially with your longbow or your recurve bow, like making sure that it's pre-stretched as well, right? Rather than just putting a fresh one on. But that's, something that I've started doing is carrying an extra string around with my longbow setup, because I have snapped the string before. And you realize pretty quickly, my whole weekend's over if I don't have an extra string with you.
All done. Yeah. I wax my strings. Sometimes I leave them on there a little longer than I should. And I've had a few break in the field. I shot an elk one time, just a sidebar. My buddy Bly was with me, and I shot an elk, and like 10 minutes later, I saw a grouse, and I was like, oh, sweet, man, I'm going to shoot a grouse too. We're packing meat out, but I'm like, sweet, grouse for dinner too. And I draw back, and my string literally blew up. And he's like, you're so lucky. He said, that had you taken one other practice draw, shot anything, one more arrow to camp, it would have done that on the elk. That was a close one. So I've gotten a little better since then about try to swap about everyone.
That's hilarious. And then with the guided versus non-guided and having to have a guide in certain areas, does that purely come down to legalities or what's the concept
Well, as an outfitter, I'm going to tell you both sides. Outfitters can help out a lot. A lot of times I don't have the time to go scout an area. You know what I mean? I just don't. Time constraints with people or families and businesses and things. And everybody's busy today. But sometimes an outfitter's an easier option. They'll give you a better percentage or a better chance of taking one. So I go with outfitters still quite a bit. I still, man, my preference is either go with outfitters that I know really well, that have become friends, or that other people have hunted with. I check the references. I like to make sure, because just like anything, there's good ones and there's bad ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. It's a personal preference. I prefer myself where I can legally to go by myself. That's part of the experience for me.
Yeah.
I feel like I like to do it out there when I can by myself. Having said that, I just came back from 2 guided hunts, which were absolutely awesome with 2 absolutely great guides. Jody Smith in Oregon for Roosevelt elk and Clint up in BC for moose. So both guys I've hunted with before, know them, and they're really good about Fred. Just go do your thing.
Definitely.
We got some moose in this area, and you know, in BC, we have to be in earshot or whatever. But he's like, hey man, you call, I'll call. You show me where you want to set up. We have a great time together. Same thing with Jody Smith. He lets me do my thing. So I like to talk to outfitters. Some outfitters want to be right on you. If you go with a guide or an outfitter that's not a bow hunter, man, that's
makes a big difference. Yeah.
Matty,
don't understand it as such.
And if you pay your money and you have somebody that doesn't understand your equipment, man, that's a tough one. Go with somebody that enjoys the type of hunting you do, whether that's handgun, rifle, recurve, longbow, compound, whatever it is. Talk to them and try and get a guide that understands the challenges or the strengths of the weapon that you have. Because in a lot of situations, a recurve and a longbow are the better weapon to have. I prefer it over other types of bows because it gives me an advantage in a lot of situations.
Yeah, especially close and fastness of being able to load and draw back and things like that. I really liken it in the sense to hunting here in Australia. It's like going to someone's property that they've hunted for their whole life and they know exactly where the animals are going to be. They know all of the watering holes, all of the best feed on the block. That's what going with a guide is, I would assume, versus going to public land where you have no idea where anything is and you have to scout from word go. That's essentially like the difference, I would think, in regards to what you're saying there.
That was very well said, and that's exactly right.
So next up on the species list, we have the sheep, and there's a few different variations. So I'm very open we've got dull sheep, the stone sheep, desert bighorn sheep, or Rocky Mountain bighorn. Is there one that you would like to talk to in particular?
They're all awesome. And having harvested all 4 with a recurve, they were all super special. But I'll tell you about the dull sheep. It was in Northwest Territories, but it was a pretty incredible one just because I'd gone on, I think 3 unsuccessful dull sheep hunts first, and all were super challenging. One, we got a ton of snow. Another one, it was so bad. It had rained and then frozen and we had ice, and we were literally using ice axes to get up the side of the hill. And we had crampons on our boots to keep us from sliding down the ice. And it was grueling. The guide had blood in his socks because blisters had broken and side hilling for a long ways. And it was crazy. Like he taught me, we were walking across this one really bad spot with snow and he kept looking behind him. I said, what are you doing? And he goes, when our tracks start to slowly U instead of a straight line, it means that whole snow slide's about to go. I keep checking that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. You know, the dull sheep for me was super exciting because I was with an outfitter because legally I had to be there. And they had told me, if you even touch a hair, like if you cut a hair, anything, that was just their rule, whether it was rifle hunters or bow hunters. If you cut a hair, your hunt's over. There's a little added pressure there.
That's wild that they don't let you do a follow-up.
If you cut hair and you want to follow up, you can.
Okay.
But if you miss a sheep,
you're probably done. Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
You're talking they're out of there. So you can shoot if you hit one or shoot one. Yeah. You can keep going after that one.
Okay.
But,
yeah. Makes sense.
It's just, if you cut hairs and they find hairs on the ground, that hunt's over.
Yeah.
I had that in the back of my mind and I was sneaking up on 2 rams. The closest I could get, you know what I mean, was a little further than I wanted to. It's close in my mind. It was close to 40 and the sheep were bedded. and I could just see the top of their horns. And I started to raise up to shoot. And I don't know if you get like this, but I get super excited. My biggest thing is calming myself down. And I was raising up, and I just knew in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna miss or not. Good shot. I'm way excited. And literally, I had to go back down behind the hill and take a few seconds. I probably took a minute because I was like, man, you have got to calm down. You make the shot, you've just got to think it's a 3D animal and stop thinking it's a dull sheep and how excited you are and how badly you want it. And it's a perfect scenario. And so I finally calmed myself down. And I also had to camp my bow quite a bit because if I came up and they saw it over the ridge,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to get smoked. So I've got to literally lay my bow almost horizontal. And I came up, drew back, and I anchored it. And I had calmed myself down enough to where it was like, all right, pick a spot, do everything right. And I shot and I lost my mind. When I saw the arrow, just that pink feather was right there where you want it. I lost my mind, but it was embarrassing because I was so excited. I turned back. I had a cameraman up on the ridge. The guy was up on the ridge. And I was just like, so excited because the sheep ran like 40 yards and I saw him starting to go down. And before he was even down, I was already celebrating. I knew the shot was great. And I was just ecstatic. So I run to my cameraman and my guide who are quite a ways away on another ridge watching the whole thing. And I run over to them and they were like, oh my God, that was great. They were all excited too. And from their perspective, they couldn't see the ram where they were and they couldn't see him when he went over the hill. So they were like, did he die right there? I'm like, oh yeah, he was. Well, I said he was going down. And they were like, oh, we couldn't see that from our angle. And yeah, and the guide, being a guide, you're sure he's down, right? I'm like, oh yeah, he's down. We hike over there. Dude, there's no sheep. There's no sheep. It was like God just took him over. And I'm like, where's my sheep? And so the guide's looking at me like, and I've asked my own clients the same question a million times. I'm like, where did you hit him exactly? And I'm like, I know I hit him. Like he was going like, it's double lung. Like he's done. I watched him going down and did he actually drop? I said, dude, he was over like, he's right there. He's got to be right here on this shale. So I'm like, we're going to have to go back and look for blood. Cause I just ran to the general cause it's wide open, like shale slides. And so we go over there and I'm starting to get that sick feeling in my stomach. Did I not see something? Like I'm sure. And my guide literally picks up his binoculars and I'm telling you, it was like a half mile, 3/4 a mile to tell you how steep it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Great shot. He's down there. We found, cause I was like, I got to find where, and we found where he had dropped and he had just slid. It was so steep.
Yeah. Wow.
He had just all the way down. So really, so that was out of the sheep. They were all amazing, but that was probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, I've shot a goat at the top of a hill before and it's death march down the hill and they get their trot on, they just get going. I'm like, it's definitely dead. Same concept. And then we had to blood trail for so long. I honestly think it was probably maybe 600 meters or so before we actually found it. And it was a quartering away shot. So I literally went through everything and it just took off down this hill. It was just crazy to see how far they can go. And I think different animals is like what you were saying about the bison before. Different animals have a different hardiness to them and how much they can endure, especially once they get that adrenaline dump. Yeah, it was wild.
Did you start to question yourself a little bit though? You were going that far?
And I felt so horrible because I was on a friend's block. I'm like, he's invited me to come and hunt with him. And this is how I've reacted. Exactly. I'm like, but then it all paid off. And that's actually, I don't know. This guy behind me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I recovered him, which is awesome.
I agree with something you said 100% about the different hardiness. It's like people, to tell people like that. One person can take something, another person can't, or
resilience of different people. Yeah.
I had a little fellow whoop me one time and I didn't think he could, but.
I also like the saying that you had of, it's something that I've always said a lot, and I say it to my daughters all the time. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. Like, you're right. And that's exactly what you did with your bow. And I love that you took the second to actually reconfigure before you took that shot, because I almost feel like if there's ever any ounce of doubt in the sense of I'm not going to be able to do this, you need to be able to take down and start again, because you're probably right.
Yeah, you know yourself really well.
Yeah, definitely. So you're very well known for predators in particular, but bear species. Obviously they're all pretty unique between the different ones that you've got access to: black bear, grizzly bear, Alaskan brown bear, and then also your polar bear. Is there a story that you'd love to tell based on the different bear species?
Man, again, they're all amazing. I don't know if you see the video where I got charged by the
I
brown
have.
bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little pucker factor.
I can imagine.
So,
It's worth a
oh,
YouTube, everyone to watch.
oh,
Yeah.
you couldn't have pulled a piece of fishing line out of my butt. Yeah, I was puckered up pretty tight on that one. But so brown bears are awesome. There's something about big, large predators that are awesome. And I've been very fortunate. I've taken over 30 black bears with a bow, and I love it. I love hunting them. I love the challenge of it. I love the meat. I love the trophy, just like the cavemen that would draw to be the bears on the cave wall. Every aspect of bear hunting to me is really fun because they're predators like we are, and they think like we do in a lot of ways. And to call them in to me is probably one of the most exciting when you have a
Mm.
predator, especially a big predator that's coming in on you and he's looking to eat. It's a pretty incredible feeling. But I would say probably out of all of them, the grizzly, if I had to pick one out of four, the polar bear was amazing too. But the grizzly bear, I actually had one stand up right in front of me, and there's a long story behind it, but he'd actually got a seal from the beach and gone up on this bluff. And I went slipping up. My cameraman was behind me and the guide behind me. And I was all by myself. I'd gotten ahead of these guys and I went over this ridge and I was following the tracks, but I honestly thought the bear was gone. And because we had seen him quite a while earlier. And I came up over this ridge and the bear stood up right in front of me. And I was just like, holy, and he was huge.
Was he
And
standing to have a look because he could hear you coming or something?
yes, I think
Yeah.
100%. Great point, Matty. Yeah, he heard something, didn't sound
Mm.
right, heard me through the willows and stood up. And it was just, it was almost like disdain. He just looked at me like, and if he could have read the fear, because I was just like, holy chowder, this thing's giant. Let's took back up. And fortunately, I do a lot better if it's a quicker shot. You know what I mean? A lot of times, if I have too much time, I get nervous, or too excited and have to calm myself down. But the bear just stood up quick and I shot him and I knocked another arrow quick and shot again. And both shots hit him in the chest. And he only went a little ways and dropped. But that was a pretty incredible experience. I was elated because that was the first I'd shot black bears, but I hadn't at that time shot a brown bear or a polar bear yet. So that was like my Fred Bear. I
Yeah.
wanted to be like Fred Bear. We always want to emulate our mentors in a lot of ways. And I had seen Fred Bear take so many grizzly bears. And I just, growing up as a kid, I just thought, man, a grizzly bear would be so cool. And so that was like a really neat moment for me. And I don't wear a lot of jewelry, but I do wear that.
Claw? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah, yeah.
It was such a special one to me. I really enjoyed the big predator.
How big is a grizzly? Like, how tall do they stand on their feet? How much do they weigh?
Man, great question. I was just in the airport in Smithers, and they had one they had to kill that it was killing cows and all kinds of stuff and sheep. And that one weighed a little over 1,000 pounds.
Oh, God.
So you think of that, the power. The one I killed, if I was to guess, I would say, I've had a lot of people say, man, based on the head and this, he was probably 1,000. I would say he was between 800 and 900 if I was to guess, just based
Mhm.
on cattle weights and stuff. That's what I would say, but he was huge.
The sheer strength of them is just so impressive. Watch them videos where they like snap an elk's back just by smacking it. It's just, yeah, insane.
The power. But so that was a really good, and it's amazing how quickly a sharp broadhead can put an animal down just in seconds. So it's really amazing. A lot of times, way faster than a rifle. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you look at it, you know what I mean? The hemorrhaging versus the shock, like it could be a big difference. But yeah, it was incredible. So out of the bears, that one comes to mind a lot just because it was a pretty incredible experience.
Yeah, very interesting point. It's probably obviously something that you see a lot of, not only because of the animals that you're taking yourself, but with the guiding that you do. I would assume that you guide both rifle hunters and archers, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and so you see that quite a lot. And I think obviously setups and things like that, like it all differs, but if you're hitting them in the right place, it shouldn't really matter. As long as you're getting penetration and you're shooting the animal correctly, I would assume it would be that way always. Like I've seen animals literally drop within 10 meters of where you shot them. They do a spin, they run, and they're down. And you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah. Oh, it's unreal. And the wound channel is larger with an arrow. I mean, really, you know what I mean? If you compare, a lot of times, if you compare a wound channel, I shoot stuff with rifles, I guide people with rifles, but when you compare the wound channel, sometimes it's, wow, that was pretty devastating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. I think there's been some studies done out of, I think it was Norway or somewhere like that, where they actually looked at the effectiveness and I don't know how they measured it, but essentially the sharp cutting of a broadhead and the amount of stress that it drops into an animal is less than what they would get with the shock from rifle.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Same with a shot that's not perfect. And if we're honest, whether it's a rifle, bow, or anything, that happens. Just like sometimes mountain lions jump on a deer and they don't get them.
Mm.
Maybe a big scar across their back. If it's going to be a non-lethal shot, a bow is definitely preferred over a gun, and the damage, it's just a clean wound and animals. Sure.
Yeah, more like just getting a tine in their side or something. An elk, for instance, that'd just be
Oh yeah.
probably less damage than what an elk tine would do.
Yep.
Yeah. Next up is the moose species, and these ones are very fascinating to me, the different moose. And so on the 29 list, you've got the Canadian moose, and then you've got is it Shiraz moose?
You got the Alaskan and the Shiraz. Yep.
Shiraz, yeah, okay. And so of those, which is the one with the ridiculous big spread? That's
The Alaska Yukon is the largest. And like the name implies, it's found in Alaska and the Yukon, but they're the biggest. The next size would be the Canadian, and the smallest of the three, although still pretty big animals, are the Shiraz moose. And the Shiraz moose are the ones that are found mostly in the lower 48, Colorado, Wyoming, you know what I mean? Idaho, a lot of those states, I think, are mostly known for the Shiraz moose.
so there's actually 3 species, is there?
There's 3. That's right. The Alaska Yukon, which is the same. And then there's the Canadian, and then there's the Shiraz.
Yeah, wow. And of those species, is there obviously very vast different locations in a sense then?
They are, because the Shiraz, like I said, a little smaller, and it's found in Colorado, Wyoming, I think is where probably the majority of them are taken. Alaska Yukon, Alaskan Yukon, and then the Canadian moose. That's what you're hunting in BC, Alberta, some of the Canadian provinces there. All awesome to hunt. All very similar animals. Whereas there's a night and day difference between coos deer, technically pronounced cows, but between a coos deer and a mule deer, for example, blacktail, there's a wide range in those subspecies. In the subspecies of moose, they're all very similar in the act, the way they sound, where you find them, a lot of that. So a lot of similarities there with the moose.
And is the hunting method for moose, is it purely calling? Is that the main goal of trying to get them in during the rut?
It's definitely the easiest. I've done them spot and stalk where the rut wasn't on, and I've done them calling. It's fun either way. I think for a traditional hunter, calling is definitely an awesome way to get them in range. But I've also spot and stalked them as well. Just more difficult because they have such giant ears, and with their palms, I don't know if you've been hunting, if you've ever put your hands behind your ear to accentuate your
No,
hearing.
I've actually not. Yeah, but that's a good point.
I do that all the time. So if I'm to hear an elk bugle or something, if you think of a moose palmated rack, they have absolutely incredible hearing because it's almost like everything funnels from the rack right into their ear. So a moose can hear really well. It's incredible how far. I'd love to see some studies because I've seen some incredible reactions for moose where you can see for super long ways calling, but that can also work as a negative if you're trying to spot and stalk a moose. So I guess that's the point is I've spot and stalked them. I've called them. There's a lot of fun ways to hunt them, but I would tell you that them coming to you is definitely preferable because when you're trying to sneak up on a moose, they have such incredible one small twig brush of your clothing, things like that.
Yeah.
It'll put them on edge. But when they're in the rut, when they're all sorted out, it gives you a little advantage there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like it's
out of the 3, I know you asked me to tell you about the favorite, but it'd probably be Alaska Yukon. I shot a really nice Alaska Yukon on my first moose hunt, and it was just an amazing experience. I actually thought I shot low. I thought I missed. But they stand in willows a lot, and this bull had willows almost to a third, maybe a little over a third of his body. And I shot, and I watched my arrow going, and I was like, oh, looks great. And then I watched the arc kind of drop down. And I was like, I must have shot right underneath him because he didn't react at all. Like he had some cows around him and he turned toward another cow. And then he went a couple steps toward this cow. And I'm like, I'm going to have to try and crawl a little closer to these willows without making any noise. And I look up and all of a sudden I see his rack go like this. And then boom. And literally, it's embarrassing to admit it, Matty, but I was like, he just fell. Like, that's more. It took a little bit for me to realize. I'm like, oh no, I got it. You know? Yeah. The shot was a little low, but it actually had taken him through the heart.
Yeah.
And he didn't go anywhere. So my first moose experience was like this incredible. I was like, oh, doesn't get any better.
How amazing. Yeah, I feel like it's like we were saying about this before because you just went out hunting moose a few weeks ago. We had this organized for a few weeks ago, and then you got caught up with weather based on the back of that hunt. Yeah, what actually happened there?
For days.
What happened? Was it just like a big
Oh,
waterfront or something came through, or?
no, the mist, we were trying to fly out of Smithers, BC, and when you show up and they're literally like and you can't even see to the top of the trees around the airport, probably gonna be a rough flight, and that's exactly what happened. They're like, "Yeah, nobody's getting out." I was like, "Oh, man." So, literally, it ended up pushing out back my schedule for days, which was a drag. When you gotta get
Mm.
home, you got a bunch of stuff to do. I missed an appointment with you, and I apologize about
No,
that
that's
again.
fine. It's fine.
But
Oh,
not only did I get out of Smithers late, but then I had to spend the night in Vancouver and then get a flight out. So it was just the whole thing was a little bit of a zoo. 3 days and 2 extra nights that I wasn't planning on.
You weren't stuck out on in a tent or something for those few days
I would
extra?
have much rather been stuck. I was stuck in an airport.
Yeah, got you.
The worst, way worse. Fortunately, yeah, but it was all right. They had a little restaurant there, so I was okay.
Okay. How many days do you reckon you've actually just spent in the tent because of weather? Like literally stuck in the tent. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's been times I've been stranded for 8 days. Oh yeah, we can. So usually it's snow. One time in Alaska, it was just pouring rain. They got 7 inches in Kodiak one time, and just like a 20 or 24-hour period, there was flooding. It was just a mess. Yeah, I've been stranded a few times.
Yeah, I can imagine. What's your favorite thing to pass time?
I love reading. I'm a goofball. I like reading, but I also love shooting my bow. So if the weather's not terrible, I'll shoot a bow. But I usually have got a book stuck away, you know what I mean,
In the
somewhere.
bag. Yeah, it's a good way to do it, isn't it? So we're burning through these. We've done very well, and we've only got a short amount of time left, and we've got 3 different ones that we want to get through: elk, caribou, and deer. So if you want to think about, you've got 4 different elk. Is that correct? Rocky Mountain, Roosevelt. Is it Tool?
Thule. Yeah,
Thule,
you got
elk,
three.
and the Alaskan Ute. Oh no, that's where the moose went.
Yeah, that's
God,
yeah.
I
Unless
had
there's one I don't know about.
no, I had when I rejigged the moose and elk to split them up, I put the Alaskan Yukon there. I was like, oh, why did I not have that? But that's why. So yeah, 3 elk.
No sweat. And again, they're all unique. The Rocky Mountain elk is awesome. That's the one that we have here in Colorado. It's one most people hunt. The Thule elk is only found basically in California. Very difficult draw. You can book a hunt for them on private ranches, or you can draw occasionally. They're a weird elk. I say weird just because it seems to me that they prefer open meadows than they do the trees. It's crazy compared to ours. And then the Roosevelt elk. Out of the 3, I would say the Roosevelt is by far the most difficult because they live in jungles. Roosevelt elk live in thick forested areas, and they're sharp like any of the other species elk. They can hear, they can walk quietly when they want to. And that's probably one of the most challenging ones, in my opinion. I'll tell you about the one we were talking about just when we got on a couple weeks ago. I was in Oregon, and I was with Jody Smith, and a super nice guy. I've elk hunted with him before. And I was actually in a blind, and I was calling because I'd heard some elk and they bugled. And so I started calling, and then a bull answered me, and I was like, oh, and then I waited about an hour, and then I cow called and 2 bulls answered, and I was like, oh, and I was sitting in the blind with Lauren, who's videoing me, and we're just getting so excited, and where are the elk? And then they pop out in the field, and well, one bull ended up going by at about 25 yards, and it was just one of those. You get super excited, and sometimes I gotta get told to calm down, but I heard a whispered pick a spot. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I drew back, and that's one we just did. We'll actually be posting that up here probably pretty quick. We posted the picture, but the video is awesome because I was shooting a wasp CBW broadhead, which is one I helped Simon, which I was excited about that to test it too. But I hit him just perfect. He ducked a little bit, so I probably hit about 2 to 3 inches higher than where I was looking, but it was a double lung. And again, like we were talking about how quickly sharp broadhead and arrow combination does its job. He literally, I ranged it. He made it 58 yards at a run and flopped over.
Yeah,
So
wow.
really cool. Couldn't have been on his feet. 10 seconds, maybe 20 tops, something like that. It's just really, it was really fun ones. Roosevelt elk, although they're one of the most difficult, and they're the ones that I haven't hunted very many of them. They're probably right up there with one of my favorites, despite the fact that I hunt Rocky Mountains every year. I just think the country they're found in is beautiful. They're unique, and they're just, man, they slip through that forest. It's crazy. I can't even tell you. An animal that big, they don't make a sound. They'll walk through those ferns, and you're like, how did you get there? And to watch an elk, an animal that big, intentionally not put his hoof down where he's going to break a stick and move his foot. It's, oh my gosh, he's literally sneaking in.
Yeah.
like he would sneak in on something. So it's cool to watch things like that.
Yeah, the closest species I think we have is the red deer, and even though
Yeah.
they're very similar in the concepts they were doing, literally, I've been in the bush walking up to a roaring deer, and next minute there's a satellite stag just right there. You're like, where did you even come from? And he's just snuck over, just hey, here I am.
And how did you do
Right,
that?
yeah, exactly.
With hard on rocks or dirt. I don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely wild. And so then finishing up with the deer species to round out the different 29. Oh no, caribou, sorry. We've got caribou and deer.
The caribou are also too. There's 5 species of caribou. I got to look. I got to do it this way. There's the Newfoundland, there's the Barren Ground, the Central Barren Ground, Quebec Labrador, and the mountain.
Mhm.
So 5 different species of caribou, all found in different areas and very different species. Like the mountain caribou, like the name implies, are usually found up in some really rough country in the mountains. And it's very similar to almost a sheep hunt. It's not uncommon to find mountain caribou where you would find double sheep or stone
Yeah,
sheep.
wow.
So they're really, mountain caribou are probably one of my favorites because of that, because of where they're found. But it's also fun to hunt the huge migrating herds that you'll find on the Barren Ground or the Central Barren Ground. The Quebec Labrador is another really neat one because it's not necessarily huge herds, but you're in forested areas. There'll be small groups here and there, and you're stocking up on them. That's a really fun one. The most recent one I got was probably 3 years ago, maybe 4, was a Newfoundland caribou. And the stalk on that one was just really fun. It was a neat angle because I had a GoPro on my head and I ditched the camera and my guide and looked like, I got to go. And I took off because the caribou was coming up. And so I slipped through the brush and it was really neat because I just like the camera angle from my recurve where you can see the caribou cruising through and I'm crouched in this grass in a little depression and you can see the arrow come back. And again, a fortunate shot, double lunged him. And I watched him peel out and he ran out there about, I don't know, 120, maybe 150 yards and just dropped. I thought it was so cool. It was the first traditional guided. So it was like, it was a super neat hunt. And again, it was a little caribou. A lot of guys, the guy didn't even, he was like, man, that's when we saw him from 3/4 of a mile or a mile away. He's, man, I think we could find a bigger one. I'm like, why wouldn't we go after this one?
I've got one here in front of me.
Yeah, I like this is a great trophy. I'll be tickled pink if I get it range. So a lot of fun. So that was a really fun one. So I know you wanted me to cover all the different ones. So now we'll jump to deer. There's 5 species of deer as well. There's whitetail, mule deer, Thika blacktail, Columbia blacktail, and then the coos deer. Technically it is pronounced cows, but really I would say 90% of people call them coos deer. All awesome. Whitetails are by far the most common in the US. That's what people hunt everywhere. They're found almost every state. They're just very fun, very prolific, challenging deer to hunt. Mule deer, a lot of people love mule deer just because of their size. They have bigger racks. They're just found in the mountains. A lot of times found in some of the prettiest areas. Although whitetails are getting more and more prevalent in some of the western states and competing. So you can actually have hybrids between a whitetail and a mule deer. So you'll have a hybrid between the two. And then sickle blacktail, although they're hunted along the coast, sometimes mostly Kodiak Island, Alaska is probably the most popular place for them, or Prince William Sound around those areas. But that's an awesome deer because they're so beautiful. They've got the black patch. They don't get as antlers, but they're found in some beautiful country as well. I don't know that I have a favorite. If I did, I would probably pick the sickle blacktail just because of where it's at.
Yeah, okay.
Beautiful
Location, yeah.
And they're challenging to hunt. Whitetails are amazing. You got to love a whitetail too. Trying to think of a cool story for you out of one of them. I'll pick a mule deer. Mule deer, where I hunt them, they're found mostly in arid country. So a water hole can be a very effective way to respond. One of the biggest mule deer I took was actually on a water tank, a tank set up for cattle.
Yeah.
And I'd had a trail camera up and I'd seen a couple decent deer, but I wish I could tell you I knew this deer was there and I had studied him for months and for years I watched him. No, I absolutely had no idea that deer was living in that area. I'd never seen him. And I went out to hunt and just shoot any buck. I was going to shoot the first buck that gave me a great shot. And I had a cameraman with me and I about fell out of the tree when I saw this deer come. And I was like, oh my gosh. Cause if I shoot a big one, it's usually an accident because it's the first buck tip.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. It's just a fluke deal. It was just giant mule deer and he's following does. And I was laughing because I was shaking so bad. I didn't know I could even make the shot because it was only a 15 to 18 yard shot. But what made me laugh so hard is I shoot this deer, he runs over and we watch him drop on camera. And I'm about to fall out of the tree stand. I'm losing my mind. Like I realize how big it is. And my cameraman, he is losing his mind. He was like, I was shaking so bad. I had to get coming. So it was great that deer had shaken us both up so much because it really was. It's just like a lot of other animals. Although I respect them just as much and I'm just as excited if I shoot a small bear versus a big bear. There's a pretty big difference between seeing a 100-pound black bear and a 550-pound black bear. And
Definitely.
same with mule deer bucks. A small one's going to get me super excited and I'm just as happy. But when that thing walked in, we were just like,
it shows obviously with the older animals, they're smarter, they're more wise. They're there for a reason. Hence why it's even more of a, not more of a trophy, but just more of a different level to it, to the extent that you've outsmarted this animal that's outsmarted everything else for its whole life. And
for
you're
a
like,
long time.
exactly. Yeah.
So most of the ones I shoot have only outsmarted animals for a year or two.
But Fred, I absolutely love what you do. Before we go though, I would love to ask last question, which is if you had to choose just one wild game species of meat to eat for the rest of your days, which would it be? Based on all the animals that you've shot, what has been the tastiest and one that you've liked the most?
You're going to laugh, but probably antelope.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned it when you said it, and I did wonder straight away.
They're amazing. They're amazing. And it's funny because it's one that gets a bad rap. A lot of people say, oh, antelope tastes horrible. If you treat it, a lot of game, it is absolutely amazing. And I may be saying that because I just ate some antelope heart. But yeah, I like heart, liver, I like everything. But I cooked up some eggs and some heart for some guys that are here. One of the guys, actually, the president of Montana Decoy is here right now. One of the guys that makes the moose and the elk and the deer. Actually, they'll make decoys for your animals too.
Yeah,
you send them a picture, they can make a decoy, like a fold-up decoy. But he's here with his son and his son shot an antelope. So I thought it was cool, and I said, I'll cook you up some eggs and heart this morning. So that's what you get.
I feel like heart is highly underrated too. It is literally one of the best cuts of an animal. I honestly, I try to share it with everyone. If I'm in camp with someone new that hasn't had heart, I'm like, this is what we're eating today, boys.
And it's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, that's incredible. Fred, thank you. Thank you for everything you do. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some stories with us. Hopefully it's insightful. I think one of the biggest things I really wanted to get out by sharing the different stories was it wasn't just about the animal at the end of the day. Yes, it was about the going on the hunt, but it's also the adventures that you got to be. You talked about the people you're with. You talked about the amazing scenarios you're in, but then also just the level of knowledge that you have to each animal and that ability to be able to just recall it on. I told you before we started, this is what we're doing. You're like, okay. So it's fascinating to see, I guess, the thought process of a hunter and just how deep and meaningful the animals in each hunt really becomes to us. And I really wanted to highlight that. And I think we've done a great job of it. So yeah, I really appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate our conversation about the animals behind you. And we were talking about that. It just comes to memory immediately, and that's what that is. Like you said, the amount of respect that hunters have for the animals, I think, is really important. And I love what you're doing, man. I appreciate it. Keep it up. I'm sure you've got a lot of people out there bow hunting because of your podcast and the things you're doing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate you.